a star.
Take a look around you. What do you see? Take a look within you. You're a blessing to all. When in your time.
Ọba tó ṣoore fún mi ṣoore fún wa tó ṣoore lójoojúmọ́. Ọba kọ má ti kà lẹ́yìn. Adúró gbọ̀ngbọ̀n lẹ́yìn aṣọ títọ́. Kò jẹ́ ronú ibi rárá.
Inuka Africa. Sima sima simama. Inuka Africa.
Semuka Africa, usazitali sire pasi. Maria no kuda iwe, wakakomborerwa iwe. Maruti osenga azive mwari nekuda kwechako chiedza. Zvirima uri zvikuru. You were a star, you were born to shine. It's time to rise up. Arise, arise, your light has come. Uri mwana wa mwari, creation waiting for you. Show the world your light.
Betulib Africa, Mumusai. Betulib Africa, Betulib Africa, land of beauty. Betulib Africa, land of minerals. Betulib Africa, Mumusai. Betulib Africa, Betulib Africa, land of beauty. Betulib Africa. Inuka Africa, it's time to rise. Open your eyes. Inuka Africa,
Semuka Africa, this is your time to shine. Inuka Africa.
The black jewel is a godly favored continent. This jewel is the nucleus of the world, as it is the most centrally located continent. The black jewel is power, brilliance, and outstanding uniqueness. This jewel is gold. It is vast gas and oil reserves, diamonds, timber, fish, and great wildlife sceneries. It is vast, beautiful deserts and a unifying coastline. The black jewel uniqueness is in its color black, the very depth of all colors. It is victory. Our victory as a black jewel lies on our genuine black knees, knelt in a unified cry to the Almighty. Our black jewel will rise in Nuka Africa, the black jewel.
Your time has come. Sima sima simama. Inuka Africa.
Emma. Emma.
A conference video.
Foreign rule and the for far too long, Africa has lived through a history of slavery, theft, foreign rule, and the darkest place in human history that the world brought to her doorstep. 400 years later, Africa's curse have birthed a dynamic, onward, and rising people. Join the Inspire E-Conference 2021 as great minds edify on the positioning of the new rising star. Starting on the 9th to the 14th of August. Africa, get ready.
Well, Welcome back to day 2 of the conference. I'm your host, Emmanuel Osanga from Johannesburg. If you missed yesterday, you missed a great time yesterday. We had a very, very good opening yesterday. Welcome you from all over the world, from wherever you're joining us. I see quite a number of people still joining us, but welcome and good to see you. Really, this is a great movement in Africa, for Africa. And we are glad to have you, Professor. I see you're already ready for us, and we are also ready for you today. Just in terms of some logistics and quick announcements, one is if you missed yesterday, all the recordings are available in all our social media platforms, YouTube, Inspire Synergy. You can get the recordings there. There are those who said it was quite heavy yesterday, and they said you needed to chew on whatever was presented yesterday. It's available for you to access. You can access it anytime on demand across all our channels. So do reach out if you're joining us for the first time. Please do reach out to those channels and access the different recordings that we have there. In terms of the day, I just want to also say that yesterday we had some social networking session after the conference. It was a great opportunity. We met some business leaders who shared their businesses. Do not miss out on that. We'll tell you about that later in the program, how you can actually join that. Post the conference, we do host a virtual networking session, which was very, very useful. Do not miss that out. Never know that could just be your opportunity. In terms of what we have for you today, I'm really excited about what we have today. It's going to be great. I will hear from a number of our speakers, and we'll introduce them. Our moderators will introduce them to you just now, but it's going to be exciting. It's talking to skills, really harnessing the skills that we have in our young population. So we're looking forward to having a great day today. If you're joining us from all over the world, do indicate, use the chat to tell us where you're joining us from, put your name. But I think also very important is if you can just share what you learned, those who came yesterday, for those who are coming for the first time, share what you learned yesterday with the audience. Let them know what you took out from yesterday. One of the takeaways for me yesterday was, can your product and services, if it was a person, can it go to heaven? That will remain with me for a very long time. And every service or delivery of products that we create, I will be asking myself that question all the time. To be kind of my checkpoint. But welcome. This is Inspire Conference. You're in the right place. And we have a very, very strong lineup for you today.
To continue typing in the chat if you haven't done that yet, so that everyone can know where everyone else is. It will be very good to know. The second activity that I want us to do is to type, for those of us who were on the chat yesterday on the call, I know we had some very key takeaways. And one of the very good things about conferences like this is that there's always going to be one key thing that you go away with at the end of every session. And so what I'd like you to do is, in one sentence, maybe even less than a sentence, to type the one thing that stood out from you from the session yesterday. Mine was, Africa has never needed the world, but the world has always needed Africa. That blew me away and made me realize that there's a lot of things that we can do as a continent, and that we don't need anybody else. We can do things on our own, but they actually need us more than we need them, and that was a key thing. What about you? What are the things that stood out from you? That one key thing that was a big deal. If you don't mind sharing very briefly what the key thing was that stood out for you from the session yesterday before we introduce our first keynote speaker today. So please do share. Muteti, you're saying, can your product or service go to heaven if you're a person? Yes, that was definitely a very big one. Let's stop blame shifting our past. Debbie, yes, that was also good. Elijah, that was a powerful one. What pursues you determines how fast you run. And that's actually quite funny while true at the same time. Christine, you're saying Africa is the island of opportunities in a sea of challenges. Absolutely. And Betty, that's another good one from you. The Good Samaritan had good intentions, but he had no money. And that was also quite a very, very important one. Same thing that Finney is saying here about the Good Samaritan. And as you can see, for different people, different things stand out. And all of us are going to take the things that we're learning and go and take them and use them as we try and make sure we take Africa to where it needs to go. Now, of course, as you might know, our theme for this year is Africa, get ready. And I guess the question for you is, are you ready? So the last exercise for you is, if you are ready, to type, I am ready. Are you ready? Can you please tell us if you're ready or not, so we can know how many people are on the bandwagon, right? Yeah, I'm ready, I'm ready. I would like to see the flag being shadowed with, I am ready, very ready, I am ready. Alan, I see you. Ivan, I see you. I'm ready. I do hope that we are ready, because we have quite a lot of impartation coming our way this week all through Saturday. And so I hope you're not just typing this because I've asked you to, but because you actually are ready, because you are going to need to be ready. Some very exciting things happening. Right, without wasting too much time, let's get into our first session today. The first person who is going to be coming on to Inspire Conference this evening is a person who I absolutely love listening to. It's an absolute pleasure seeing him, and every time he speaks, it's like the oracles of heaven are just coming through a man here on earth. And I want to introduce Professor Anand Pillai, who has got more than 35 years of experience in the corporate world. He's handled the most interesting challenges and assignments in general management. He's been a head of operations as a general manager to CEO to CLO for Fortune 500 countries. He's worked in India, in the US, in Singapore, in Canada. He's what you would properly call a global manager. At the moment, Mr. Pillai is a managing director of Leadership Matters, which is a company that focuses on building an entrepreneurial culture in organizations. And currently, Anand has been retained as a chief transformational officer at a 15 billion, and I hope I can repeat that for your benefit, a 15 billion conglomerate for business and HR transformation. He's also a leadership coach. He's an organization transformational guru. His focus is mostly on making sure that clients can lift their performance and their skills and their behaviors, which speaks a lot into what he's going to be talking about today as we try to apply the world's best managerial practices, thinking like design thinking, boundary management, things that a few years ago maybe were not a big deal, but now have become more and more important. His recent corporate roles have been as Senior Executive Vice President, HR, and Chief Learning Officer at Reliance Industries. That's one of the biggest companies in the world. And before that, he was a Senior Vice President and HR Global Head at Talent Transformation at HCL Technologies Limited as well. And so without wasting too much time, his introduction speaks more than volumes that are necessary. He's going to be coming to talk about harnessing the emerging skills in Africa, but also doing it in a practical way by sharing particular examples and case studies from where he has been. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and clap as we welcome Anand Pillai to Inspire Conference 2021. You're welcome, Anand. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben, for this kind words. And I'm going to now share my screen. Let me see if I get that organized. There we are. Okay, so we have my screen here, which is harnessing emerging skills. And as Ben and others mentioned, I will be talking about case studies from India, how we did this as we go forward. Now, I want to make it very clear that I will not be talking about actually the emerging skills, but I will be talking about how we can harness the emerging skills. Having said that, I want to also put up the top 10 skills of 2025 as postulated by World Economic Forum. Now, if you look at it on the legend on the left-hand bottom corner, or my left-hand bottom corner, you will find 4 categories of skills: problem solving, self-management, working with people, technology use and development. So if you see, the blue part of it is all into problem solving. So what are the skills that Africa would need? Is analytical thinking and innovation in the area of problem solving, complex problem solving, critical thinking and analysis, creativity, originality, and initiative, and of course, reasoning, problem solving, and ideation. Just this bucket of skills could go into days together. The second category of skills are what we would call self-management. And in self-management, you need to have active learning and learning strategies, and of course, resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. And Africa may not be there yet in, let us say, active learning or learning strategies, but you can get there. The third category of skills are working with people, and here it is largely leadership and the social influence. And how can you lead from the front, and how can you get work done with people who are not directly reporting to you? The problem in today's world is that we have to get a lot of our work done from people who are not part of our organization, who may not even be part of our geography, who may not even be part of our legal entity. But we need to exercise social influence and get things done, and that is working with people. And the fourth category, and possibly Africa will have to spend a lot of years in catching up with this, is technology use and development. And the two specific skills are technology monitoring, technology control, technology design, and programming. While Africa may have missed or may have not gone through the first generation and the second generation, it is quite possible for you to leapfrog into the latest technology and development, and therefore this is possible. So the four categories of skills: problem solving, self-management, working with people, and technology and development is easily masterable. I don't want to get into, as I mentioned, the emerging skills, but what I want to talk about is how you can harness them. This particular slide that I'm now talking about is available on Google. All that you have to do is put top 10 skills 2025 World Economic Forum, and the entire report is available for you. My job is to focus on harnessing these emerging skills, and the three platforms that I would like to talk of is the learning organization, creating an employee-centric organization, and building on the four strands of an employee-centric organization. So let me introduce two definitions of the learning organization. The learning organization, as put by Peter Senge in his book, The Fifth Discipline, and here he is focusing on the importance or the dependence on the learner in the learning organization. And my desire is that the whole of Africa imbibe this culture, the learning organization. And what is the learning organization? The learning organization, as put by Peter Senge, and more of it you can get from the book, The Learning Organization, where he calls it the fifth discipline. It's basically a group of people working together to collectively enhance their capacities to create results that they really care about. Now, most of you would have heard a proverb or an adage which says, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. My approach is, why waste time taking the horse to the water? If you really want the horse to drink the water, all that you will have to do is pull the tongue of the horse and rub salt on it, and the horse will immediately run towards water. The job of leaders in Africa is not to force people to drink water or not to force people to learn. The job or the mandate or the task or the challenge that is there for leaders in Africa is to ensure that they create a learning environment where people work together to collectively enhance their capacities to create results that they really care about. Now, one of the beautiful things about Africa, I shared this in my small introduction, is the fact that Africa shares a age demography very similar to that of India. And what is that? Over 65% of the population is under the age of 35. That is true of India. That is true of large portion of Africa. Why is this important? This is important because Africa is a young nation and we need people. There are various wars that are being fought. The biggest war that is being fought in today's world is the war for talent. Now, if you look at all the emerged or developed or emerging economies, take China, for example, take America, for example, take Japan, for example, take Europe, for example. All these countries have got an aging population. Sure, they are very high on their GDP. They're possibly number 1 to number 5, and Africa may be way below even 25 in terms of the world's GDP. But don't worry, you have the talent. And once you have the talent and once you have the people, the people will be able to take the country, the continent forward. Now, the definition of a learning organization is not only central to the learner, it is also central to the organization. It takes two hands to clap. It takes two to tango. Yes, the learner is primarily important for him or her to harness the emerging skills, but the organization, and this organization could be an institution, could be a government entity, could be a church, could be a corporate entity, could be an NGO. All of them in Africa should constantly strive to facilitate their employees with all the knowledge and learning tools to reap huge business profits to ensure that they continue surviving as a winner in competitive times. So there is a focus on the learner and there is a focus on the organization. So if you look at the employee-centric organization, it centers around the employee, who is the core of the company. And that employee, once he or she is treated or respected or focused as one who would create value for customers, you then together will be able to focus on reaping business results centered around the employee. Now, the employee-centric organization that you need to create in order to get what we would call an organization that harnesses the emerging skills is one that is an eco or an employee-centric organization. There are 4 pillars of this employee-centric organization. What are those 4 pillars? The first pillar is career planning. We need to really put the focus, put the center on the employee, on his or her career. The second one is succession planning. That is, build successors or build the leadership bench in the organization. A large number of people confuse career planning and succession planning, and many of them use it interchangeably. They think each is synonymous with the other. I will spend a few minutes to explain the difference so that you get that clarity in order that you will be in a position to really harness the skills. But those are the top 2 building blocks. The underlying building blocks of harnessing skills is 2 other pillars. One is career customization. And I can tell you one thing, of all the continents, or for that matter, of all the countries in the world, the one country that can imbibe or adopt or implement career customization almost readily is Africa. And the main reason for that is you don't have any legacy into the big structures which are for many corporates carved in stone. Because Africa is a young economy, young population, the flexibility, the mobility is far higher, and therefore you can implement that. I will talk about that. And of course, finally, we will also talk about how you can reskill yourself. There are a lot of people who are raising their hands. If it is a question, there will be time for us to answer those questions. So I want to deep dive into my presentation as I go forward. Please, I request Ben or whoever is moderating to keep a track of the questions so that at the last 10 minutes or 15 minutes, we can spend on those question and answer. I did talk about the fact that many people confuse career planning with succession planning. In one slide, let me give you the difference between career planning in the red and succession planning in the green. Career planning is to my left, to your right possibly, and succession planning is in the green. So what is the main difference? The main difference is what or who is there in the center of the process. In the case of career planning, the individual or the employee is at the center. He or she has got career plan 1, career plan 2, career plan 3, career plan 4. So when I began my career way back in 1981 end or 1982, I at that point in time wanted to be, or I was given a responsibility of being a Unix systems administrator. I pretty soon found out that the career growth in programming, at least the company that I worked for, was not much. Bulk of the people who are on a fast track career was all into sales and marketing. And I still remember one particular year, and that was the year 1986. And we in our company had got large mainframe orders, and the managing director of the company gave a congratulatory note, and that was put on the notice board. And on that notice board, I had worked along with all the marketing people in the pre-sales team. I was a technical person doing what is known as RTS, requirement definition analysis, justification, and so on. But when the final recognition, the final award came, my name wasn't there. It was only the sales and marketing people. And I went there and complained. I said, listen, I also did some work. In fact, I did a lot of work. But the company, they said, no, the final credit, the final award goes to the marketing person. So that particular year, the performance appraisal in 1986, I said, 1986 March, I said, listen, there was one option. Do you want to discuss something? I said, yes, I want to discuss about my career. And I moved into sales and marketing. Main reason for that was I had that as a career plan. And once I moved into sales and marketing, I got into product development, I got into program management, I got into account management. Those were all the career plans that was there. I finally moved on into quality, I moved on into training. Those are all the career plans. So a particular individual may have a variety of career plans. He or she may go in a particular track, might go in 1 or 2 tracks, and ultimately culminate in any one of them. In fact, when I was selected for my first job with DCM as a management trainee, I had to give in a 5-page essay on what I plan to be or what I intend to be 5 years from now. And the discussion was all around what I'm doing to get there. So a particular individual, we in Africa, we will all have our own career plans. I want to become an agriculturalist. I want to become an economist. I want to become a technologist. I want to become a lawyer. I want to become a doctor, whatever. You have a variety of career plans. So the career plans are around the individual, but the individual is in the center. That is the key difference in career planning. Exactly the opposite is the case of succession planning. In succession planning, for an organization, for a church, for an institution, for an NGO, or for a country, the position that needs to be filled is in the center. And contrary to popular belief, that position need not be only the CEO or the CFO or the chief operating officer or the chief technology officer. The position is that of any strategic role. It could be that of a project manager. It could be that of a quality manager. It could be that of a HR manager. It could be that of a technology manager. It could be that of a geography manager. For that particular position, you have got a variety of people who could fill in that particular position. Individual 1, individual 2, individual 3, individual 4. Now, depending on who in your assessment is ready, who has harnessed the skills themselves, they will be possibly selected, and we will see what is that process for succession planning. Let me take you into the deep dive of career planning. What is career planning? And people in Africa, if you have to harness your skills, you will have to build this foundation very clear. You must be very, very focused on what are the career plans that you are having. Only then can you accordingly appropriate or harness the relevant skills, which I will come to in the or towards the end of my presentation, pillar number 4. So career planning is basically a lifelong process which includes choosing an occupation, getting a job, growing in your job, and possibly changing your careers and eventually retiring. And here I want to mention one thing very clear. You need to choose an occupation and get a job. Once you get a job, you need to grow in your job. And all of us want to grow in our job. In the process of growing in our job, we possibly will end up changing careers. I gave you my own example. I started way back in 1982 as a Unix systems administrator. I did not last in that for more than 4 years. By 1986, I wanted to change my career, but I was in the same group, the Tatas. I had the same job or a similar job, but I changed my career. Once you change your career, and of course, from there, I got into sales and marketing, I got into account management, I got into program management. My careers changed, but I was within the umbrella organization of the Tatas for 10 long years. And then for 6 long years, I was with 2 American companies, and then close to 14 years in HCL Technologies. And in HCL Technologies, I had a geography role in Canada. I came back to India with a geographic role, and then I moved into people development, I moved into quality, I moved into business transformation, and eventually retiring. So we need to understand that career planning does not mean company planning. Career planning is basically choosing a particular occupation, get a job. Once you get your job, you definitely should grow in your job, and you grow in your job, and the faster you harness your skills, the faster you grow. But you don't have to harness the entire skills. You need to harness those skills that are in line with your career aspirations. Sometimes what happens is your career aspiration may change, as it was in my case. I moved away from a technical. I lasted not more than 4 years. I moved into sales, and there I succeed. I was there for about 18 years. But for some reason or whatever, I decided to change that career. I got into people development. And from people development, I got into business transformation. So you possibly will change your career in line with your career aspiration. You need to harness your skills and then see how you can take that forward. So that's the first building block of an employee-centric organization. Having done that, then you look at the organization that you're working for, which is focusing on succession planning. Now, what is succession planning? Succession planning for an organization, for a church, for an institution, for a government, or for an NGO, basically is that process which enables them to identify the talented employees within the organization, so that the organization or the church or the NGO or the governmental department provides the training, provides the education to develop them for future and higher responsibilities and broader level responsibilities. By God's grace, I have had the pleasure and privilege of working for what we call Fortune 500 companies. And in these Fortune 500 companies, the companies provide a very good learning environment. But that learning environment is only secondary. The primary the primary enabler in harnessing skills is the desire of the employee. If an employee has got a keen desire, then obviously the environment or the platform provided by the organization is leveraged and taken forward. Many people say, I don't believe in luck. Well, some people say, I believe in luck. My definition of luck is when opportunity meets preparedness. So you come across opportunities, but if you're not prepared, if you're not harnessed your skills in line with your career aspirations, whatever be the succession planning done by the organization, it does not cut ice. Now, obviously, succession planning will not be done for 100% of the organization. The general rule is they identify high potential. And percentage wise, it is anywhere between 5 to 15%, depending on which organization you're working for. The organization identifies these high potentials. Now, once you've identified those high potentials, the job or the duty or the responsibility of the organization is to develop these high potentials to effectively take over the current leadership whenever their time comes to exit their positions. And this is what is known as position-centric career, position-centric succession planning. For the job of a finance head, for the position of a geography head, for the position of a quality head, for the position of a technology head, for the position of a church head, for the position of a department head. And this type of leadership development usually requires extensive transfer of an individual between the department. So you may want to say, okay, I want a person to succeed in the finance role, but that finance person should know the products. So he or she may have to get transferred into a particular product department. That finance person also must know technology. So they may get transferred to a technology department. Let us say in an organization, they may get exposed to a particular geography. So they may be transferred to that. So it requires what we would call a 2 by 2 by 2. And what is a 2 by 2 by 2? You need to transfer the person in a minimum of 2 geographies. If anybody in Africa is aspiring for a global role and he or she has never visited America, it is very unlikely that he or she will become a global manager. At best, they will become only East Africa manager or a South Africa manager or a West Africa manager or a Central Africa manager. You need to get exposed into at least 2 of the emerging economies. You need to know what is happening in America. You need to know what is happening in Australia. You need to know what is happening in Europe. You cannot be a frog in the well. So you must be exposed to at least 2 geographies. And by God's grace, I've had the pleasure and privilege of being exposed to many of these geographies. But the second 2 by 2 is you must be exposed into at least 2 of the company's product or service lines, whatever the company is dealing with. If you're dealing with a variety of products and you want to become a leader to take on senior roles, you must be exposed into all those products or service lines, at least 2 of them. And the third transfer between departments that you will have to get into is exposed into the variety or the various functions within an organization. There are at least 5 critical functions in an organization: finance, HR, marketing, technology, quality, and so on. So if you want to grow into a senior role, to succeed in a senior role, you definitely need to harness your functional skills in the specific function that you are in. For example, I was for about 18 years in sales and marketing. And by God's grace, I kind of learned that. And by chance and by desire, I got into HR. Once I got into HR, I had to reskill myself. I had to retrain myself and harness those skills. And then from there, got into business transformation. And in between, I got into quality and so on. So you need to harness the job-specific skills, you need to harness the geography-specific skills, the technology-specific skills, and the practice-specific skills. So for an organization to implement or to deploy a succession management process, there are 5 components. What are those 5 components? I have listed all the 5 components here. First thing is, they must have a very transparent succession management process. And this particular succession management process must be, as far as possible, not a secret document, but a document that is there on the church website, say, if it is a church, on the website of or the intranet of the government organization or the intranet of the corporate entity. It must be something that is available for a large number of people to see. Only then will you be considered a transparent organization, particularly when people are aspiring, they know what positions are being ventilated. After that, we need to also identify the talent pool, and having identified the talent pool, we will go on into engaging the leaders, then managing or monitoring the success of the succession planning process, and ultimately recommending people for the key positions. So look at the first component. The succession planning should be aligned with the business strategy. A large number of organizations that I have come across in the early stages of my career, about 35 years ago, they were all keeping the succession planning process centered around individuals. Oh, so-and-so is a great person. He or she can succeed. Well, that is a wrong approach. The right approach towards succession planning, as I have listed here, is succession planning should integrate the corporate process to make sure that there is a link between the company's business strategy and that particular employee's long-term goals as well as objectives. That is something that has to be transparent. For that particular end in mind, work backward from the organization so that you provide a pool of identified talent. And some people may be in finance, some people may be in HR, some people may be in technology, some people may be in business, in sales and marketing, and so on, and they need to harness that specific skills. Once they have done that, then you engage them using the best practices, giving them higher responsibilities, higher developmental opportunities, coaching and mentoring, putting them into extra training, and so on, and taking them a few notches above. And you also need to assess the effectiveness of that program, because not everybody who's put into the succession management process will be able to succeed. Some of them may filter out, some of them may wash out, and may not be able to make it. So you need to constantly monitor if people are harnessing the right skills. If they are not harnessing the right skills, or if they are going slow, or if they're going too fast ahead of the company's business objectives, you need to have a regular monitoring and assessing mechanism, which in turn increases the level of coaching and mentoring, or changes the track that they are in. Finally, you get into recommending, okay, out of the so-and-so people, these are the people who are possibly recommended. And here you will come out with a particular technology. Depending on which organization you are, you may have a 9-box grid, which enables you to select the people. You may have a particular behavioral event interview, or whatever that you have to recommend the people for success. So those are the 5 integral components of succession planning. Let me get you into the third component of your entire employee-centric organization, which is career customization. When you look at career customization, and Africa, as I told you, is possibly right at the beginning to deploy what Deloitte has called as MCC. What is MCC? Mass career customization. How do you determine the career growth or the career track of a particular individual? You determine the career growth or the career track of a particular individual, or you assess the career growth or career track of a particular individual as per Deloitte on 4 parameters. And what are those 4 parameters? I've listed that in my slide here. The 4 parameters are the pace of work. You could have a very decelerated pace of work or a very accelerated pace of work, and your career can grow depending on this parameter, whether you are having a decelerated pace of work or a very accelerated pace of work. The second parameter that determines your career growth is the workload. You can have a reduced workload or you can have a full workload. And Deloitte calls this the workload parameter. The third parameter that enables one to track or harness their skills is the location or the schedule. You may be having restricted travel, restricted location requirements, or you are not at all restricted. You are saying, listen, post me wherever there is a position. Post me in Timbuktu. I'm locationally mobile. I can travel all over the world, no problem. So that could be something that determines your career. Not all of us may be locationally mobile. Not all of us may have the capacity to take a full load. Not all of us may have the pace of an accelerated pace. Then finally, the fourth parameter is the role that a particular individual plays. Your role could be that of an individual contributor, or your role could be that of a team leader. Now, again, contrary to popular belief, it does not mean that individual contributors are at the bottom of the pyramid and team leaders are at the top of the pyramid. There are a lot of organizations, and I can give you examples like that of IBM. In IBM, there is a role or a position called IBM Fellow. He or she is actually an individual contributor. This person is doing a lot of research. This person is filing a lot of patents, but they are not having any team members directly as part of their organization or as part of their team. And they could well be earning as high as even the CEO or the CXO. So these are the 4 parameters. Let me take you through the career graph of how it grows. Before I go through, let me give you the 6 parameters which enables us to determine why this career graph will become dynamic. And these 6 parameters are very relevant even for Africa. What are those 6 parameters? The first parameter is the fact that there is a shrinking pool of, mark my words, skilled labor. There is not a shrinking pool of labor. There is possibly plenty of labor available in Africa, but skilled people who have harnessed a particular skill, whether it be technology, whether it be finance, whether it be marketing, whether it be whatever, that pool of skilled labor is shrinking because not many people can harness all the skills. But that is a challenge and that is a reality. The second one, and this possibly is true for Africa, many of you will be able to correct me, is the changing family structures. A large number of economies started off with what we call the joint family system. We in India, we had the joint family system. Now we're kind of migrating away into what is a nuclear family system, which is basically a father and mother and 2 children. But there was a time where we all lived with our parents together. So the changing family structures could be a parameter which enables you to decide on the career customization. The third parameter, which is becoming a very important parameter for organizations which are now adopting diversity, is the increasing number of women in the workforce. If you look at some of the announcements that are being made by the Fortune 500 companies, almost all of them are saying we want to increase the number of women in our workforce, not just at the entry level, but even at the leadership level. And that will enable you, even Africa, to really leapfrog into the next level of technology. And this is not just in manual labor. This is in high-end leadership roles as well. And of course, the changing expectations of men, where men are saying, listen, why should I be the only earning member? I want to take a sabbatical. And also, and this is true in Africa too, the evolving expectations of the Gen X and Gen Y and big impact of technology and COVID has really taught us how we can work in a virtual environment. The bottom line is that the workforce has changed as a result of COVID, but the workplace has not. And this is what will make us to do our career customization. And what we basically are seeing is the fact that business as usual is no longer an option. So what are some of the things that Africa can adopt to ensure that people harness their skills in a much more productive manner? The first thing that we can consider is flexi time. Don't give the regular 9 to 5 job. And COVID has really brought about this in a very interesting manner. Some people can work from morning 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock. Some people can work from 10 to 6 and so on, flexi time. Or you can have reduced work hours or part-time. You can say, listen, wait a minute, I'm having an aged parent to take care of, or I'm having young children to take care of, or I am sick, and therefore I want to have, for this portion of my career, I want to have some reduced work hours, or I want to have part-time. Or sometimes what happens is there are some people who really work like a maniac, and countries like Finland, countries like Europe are experimenting this 4-day compressed work week, where they don't want to work 5 days a week, they want to work 4 days. Africa may want to consider this. Or the other concept which is being introduced is this concept of banking of hours. Banking of hours is very similar to any conventional banking. You've got excess money, you go and bank it. So if I work on a particular day, rather than the required 6 to 8 hours, I work for about 8 to 12 hours. I can bank those hours in a particular account, which I can use for some other day where I'm required to take leave for some practical reasons. That leave will not be really a leave. I can draw from the bank, from my overdraft, or from my bank balance. If I have a bank balance of so many hours that I worked extra, I can take that, and that is called banking of hours. The other one is leaves and sabbaticals. So you may decide, listen, not everybody needs to be in a particular job. Some people may want to take sabbatical, and a large number of academic institutions encourage this. The workload is not much, so they encourage them to get into sabbaticals. The yellow one, which is a very important one, which is now being introduced and being experimented in a large number of organizations as they are becoming global, is this concept of job sharing. What is job sharing? Job sharing is there are 3 or 4 people who are having the same job. Now, it's not necessary that all the 3 or 4 people do the same job. It's quite possible that one person does the job of more than one person, or one person shares the job of another. And I'll give you my own example. I'm based in New Delhi, India. My work hours are equivalent to your 4 o'clock in the evening. By the time your 4 o'clock comes, I've already finished my day. But 4 o'clock is, or even 3:30, is not even the end of the day for you. So if I choose to take on that same job for another person in Africa because of the time zone, I can do that, and you can also do the same. So job sharing is sharing the job with people so that while you share the workload, and while you can, at a later point in time, if you can't, then somebody else can fill in, and that can become a career customization. We all know about telecommuting and virtual working. Or the other last one in black is what is known as gradual retirement. In many countries, retirement age is 55, 58, 60, 65, and so on. You don't have to work till 58 and then retire. Gradual retirement is phasing out your retirement or customize your career because you harness your skills differently in different phases. Now, as I'm coming towards the last 10 minutes of my presentation, I want to talk about what is there on the left hand, the corporate ladder, which is what we looked at traditionally. And Africa as a continent can look at what is there on the right. So the traditionally is, you have your workers work according to the family structure, you move up the hierarchy, and then you get promoted. Well, that is one way of growing. The other way, which Deloitte calls it the corporate lattice, is basically adjust as the workers' needs change over time. Give people a career life lift. Enable some people to move faster, some people to move slower, some people to change directions. Provide multiple paths upwards, lateral, and make sure that you have an evolving matrix structure. In fact, this kind of an organization is called a holographic organization. Organizations where network reporting is what is given as the order of the day. And since Africa is in the beginning of the high growth career, you can very well adopt the career lattice. Now, let me take you through the career graph of an individual. I'm taking 4 stages of an individual's life. Stage 1 is 1 to 5 years of a career. And let us look at the 4 parameters that we use to measure the track of a person. That is the pace of work, the workload, the location or travel restrictions, and the role that he or she is playing. If you look at the graph here, at the 0 to 5 years of a person's career, the pace is kind of okay, but the person has got all the time in the world, and therefore their workload can be very, very high. They also have no restrictions whatsoever. They have no obligations whatsoever. They possibly are not even married. So they don't have to worry about taking care of a spouse or anything. They can travel as much as they want, and therefore they have what is known as an unrestricted travel. But unfortunately, when it comes to the role, that particular person in 0 to 5 years may be on the beginning of their career, and therefore that is low. Now let us take stage 2. Stage 2 is when the person has possibly got married, he or she has got young children, and suddenly the career graph takes a completely different shape. Earlier, they were in a position to have a faster pace of life, but now they cannot because they've got a young spouse and they've got possibly young children, 3 young children or whatever, and their workload is not as much as they could take on earlier, and they're not in a position to travel 5 days in a week or something, but they have a family and they need to take care of that. And of course, they're still an individual contributor. Then you move to stage 3. Stage 3, you have grown-up children, and by this time, the person is 13 years plus. Possibly they've changed a career within the same company, they've got onto another role, they've started a new career, and they've got the ability to come back to possibly a similar workload, similar pace, and not as much travel restriction. They can travel for 2-day trips, and they've grown in their role from an individual contributor to a team leader. Then you come to what I would call myself. I put myself in this category, 25 years plus in the corporate role. This is also what we call the birds have flown off the nest, or the empty nester syndrome. Children are all, overseas or in other locations, and they are possibly even married and taking care of themselves. No travel restrictions. You can take on global assignments. People in Africa, you possibly are in stage 1 or stage 2, but you need to prepare people for stage 3 and stage 4 so that they harness the relevant skills and move up the ladder as they move up the value chain. I don't want to spend too much on this because I want to give time for questions as I come to the last component, and that is reskilling. So you need to reskill yourself in 4 areas. And what are the 4 areas where you need to reskill? Before that, let me ask you the question. And that question is, how do you manage growth, innovation, and talent engagement in a country or a continent like Africa, and performance when the pressure is to do more with less? The solution is reskill. Ensure that your employees harness the career-specific skills, the job-specific skills, in order that they perform a variety of tasks to gain the flexibility in work, scheduling, and improved coordination. We need to focus on 3 big areas. while you are harnessing the skills. And what are those three areas? The first one is the blue one, and that is the job role skills linked to the activities, that of a programmer, that of a lawyer, that of a clerk, that of a finance person, that of a project manager, whatever it is. You need to harness the job specific skills. Once you have harnessed the job specific skills, you also need to move up the value chain into that green area where you are, in addition to harnessing your job specific skills, you also get to learn product skills, technology skills. Once you have done that, in accordance to World Economic Forum, you then move into the harnessing of the leadership and business skills. So you need to have both these parameters taken care of in order to ensure that you have got a person who is ready and available to take on global tasks or profession where a person has managed his or her career tasks by harnessing the relevant skills unique to a set of job responsibilities. He or she has got the technology skills, he or she has got the job specific skills, he or she has got the business and leadership skills. The job or the role of the organization is to ensure that you have got the people who have been engaged and they are retaining their current skills, but they are also harnessing, managing, and deploying the right skill at the right places in order for the organization to reap its business benefits. There are two things that you will have to do for you to continue to harness your skills, and that is what I would call the courage zone and the comfort zone. We need to ensure that employees are put in the 60-40 ratio. 60% of their day-to-day job must be in their comfort zone. They must first harness their skills that they are comfortable in. That should be about 60%. But having said that, they also should spend time, about 40% of their time and energy should be spent in the courage zone, that which is difficult, and this is possibly more difficult to harness than the comfort zone, but first they should focus on the comfort zone, that which is a higher duty, that which requires additional mentoring. They should have about 40% of their job harnessing the difficult skills or the courage zone skills. This should be revisited once in every 18 to 36 months. It should not be a static curve or a static circle. Once in every 18 to 36 months, you need to revisit the ratio, because as you revisit the ratio, what happens? It is quite possible that a particular individual has harnessed some of those difficult skills, some of those risky skills, and that has gotten from or moved from the courage zone to the comfort zone. And when you revisit it, that particular person's deployability will increase, and that can increase with the location, that can increase with the function, and that can increase with the particular domain or the skill. So you get to harness your skills in all the three dimensions: in terms of geography skills, your location skills; in terms of your business domain skills; in terms of your function skills, HR, marketing, and so on. Finally, it comes to the big question that we have. And what is that? That is, how long should we learn? Mortimer Adler said, the purpose of learning is to ensure growth. The purpose of learning is growth, and our minds, unlike our bodies, continue to grow as long as we live. Now, as I'm talking to you, I am 61 or 62 on my age. I don't want to stop learning. My body may stop growing, but my mind will not. And that is what Africa should adopt. But the question that is asked of by the CFO is, okay, if you train people, they will become more marketable. So the CFO will ask the question, what if we train our employees and they leave? Well, my challenge is not that. My challenge is, what if you don't train your employees in Africa? What if you don't let your employees harness the skills and they stay back? That will be a bigger problem. With that, I come to the end of my presentation. And I've just about hit my time and open for questions. The moderator can channel the questions to me, and I'll be more than happy to answer. Ben, the floor is yours.
Wow. Wow. I think the only question that there has been for you, Anand, is can we get a copy of the presentation, which I know we're going to make available in case anyone wants that. So, but amazing stuff there. Also, I know for anyone who wants to get a recording of this and go through it again, it's not the sort of thing that you can just digest in 40 minutes. You probably need to go and watch this about 20 times over. So you can go ahead and do that. Just go to look for Inspire Synergy on YouTube, on Facebook as well, and you'll be able to find links to the recording today. And you can not only go through it, but share it with other people. And I can see that from the chat, there's a lot of excitement, rightfully so, because this is the sort of stuff that we want to be talking about. If you do have any questions that need to be answered now, though, you can go to, if you go to your chat section, there's a Q&A section. And if you go to that, you can be able to ask your question, and then we'll put those to Anand right now and go through a couple of them before we go on to the next session. And here's one from Isaac Aligo, and I'm going to, I think, go through all of them, and then you can respond to them at once, and then the rest of them will give you a chance to be able to respond to them live as we go into the next session. Isaac asks, he says, your explanation on the labor advantage Africa has given talks about the demographic transition. He, however, says that global jobs are distributed in such a way that they seem to be concentrated in places with cheap labor, and developed countries, as we know, are increasingly investing in AI and automation with the aim of reducing production costs. How do you see that impacting the growth of the economies and the job market in Africa? Someone else here asks and says, profit usually is the ultimate motivator for most companies. Do you have any data or any information on how these approaches could impact or have impacted companies' earnings? And someone else says that these are very good concepts, but how do you think we can be able to translate them specifically to a place like Africa, where unemployment is very high and where you don't even have a job to talk about increasing your skills, especially in the area of formal employment? And somebody is asking, how do you conduct assessment for the 60-40 zone? So I think you can take care of those.
Let me take one question at a time. The first question is on this low-cost economies.
Yeah.
India is was possibly where Africa is today about 20 years ago. A large number of the technology companies or the Fortune 500 companies came to India because of cost arbitrage. But let me tell you one thing, cost arbitrage will not provide you labor forever. You will have to have what is known as skill arbitrage or innovation arbitrage. Africa is at the stage where companies can come to exploit the low-cost labor. But if the people harness their skills, if the country, I was, for example, in Uganda twice, and I, even interacted with the First Lady. One of the things that I was sharing was that you need to revamp your education system. In addition to sharing the basic skills, in addition to teaching the basic skills, you need to leapfrog into some of the newer skills for which there is no barrier. AI, robotics, blockchain, and any of Industry 4.0 or IoT. The advantage that is there is you have a young economy. You can very comfortably learn, and you can double both of the skill arbitrage as well as the cost arbitrage. You can possibly start at the low end of the curve and then move up, and you comfortably can move up because age is to your advantage. Anybody who has got done anything will say that the younger the person is, the higher the learning agility, and Africa has got an advantage there. That's the first one. Now, let us look at the second one, the unemployment. Well, let me tell you one thing. India was possibly in the same situation that Africa is. A large portion of the people were unemployed. Well, let me tell you, if you continue to focus on the skills that you have, you continue to be unemployed. On one side, there is unemployment. There is another side, there is a huge, and I would say huge, skill shortage. So one set of people are unemployed, another set of people are not even available. So I go back to 3 of the companies that I'm working for want of confidentiality. I can't give you the names of those companies. But let me tell you one thing. These companies, they retrenched about 5 to 12,000 people in each one of those companies. So 5 to 12,000 jobs were made redundant. Those same companies have got anywhere between 8 to 12,000 open positions in other skill areas, in other functional areas, in other business areas and domain areas. The message that I'm trying to say is, if you are focusing on a particular skill, there definitely will be unemployment. The focus for Africa should not look at job creation, but the focus of Africa should be on skill creation. Now, many of you believe in the Bible, and I want to give you a promise from the Bible. And that promise is this: Proverbs chapter 22, verse 29. What does it say? It says, do you find a person skilled in his work or her work? He or she will serve before kings and not before obscure men. My dear brothers and sisters, my dear friends in Africa, don't focus on job creation. Focus on skill creation. Because when you have the right skill, you will have enough entrepreneurial talent to create jobs yourself. Because companies, the Chinese companies who are coming, will come to reap only the bottom end of the pyramid. But you will be able to provide skills, and taking advantage of the global platform, a person sitting in Ghana, a person sitting in Kenya, a person sitting in Congo, a person sitting in Congo or Uganda can provide skills and can provide or work for a company in US or in Australia, taking advantage of the location, taking advantage of the technology. Bottom line, harness the skills. The job will come to you. The job will come after you, because now we have a situation where we are tailoring the jobs to fit the people, rather than the other thing where a person had to reskill himself or retrain himself for a particular static position, that of a finance manager, of a project manager, or so on. Nowadays, we have got what we call hybrid work environment. Our own daughter, for example, I mean, she was trained in one particular area. She's doing work in another area. She was not even trained in the area of marketing communications or employee communications. But a particular position was available. She just fitted it. Key is the title of my topic. Harness the skills. Let the skills be there. So the answer for Africa is not in providing jobs, not in providing employment, but focus on employability. Once you harness your skills, you're increasing your employability. And once you increase your employability, that will take care of your unemployment. It's a long answer to a short question, but that is right where you need the solution.
I think you just nailed it there, because I can tell you that, Anand, as a person who's been running businesses for the last decade plus, we realized, especially in Uganda, and you did talk about being here in our education system, that there were serious challenges with employing people based on what academic qualifications they have, where someone comes into an interview room with a master's degree and it's a first class, and then you interview them on the skill set for the job that they're applying for, and they basically don't seem to have any idea as to what they're supposed to be doing. And so you find that a lot of companies, and I think Elon Musk has touched on this as well, he doesn't look at academic qualifications anymore. It's about your competence as a person and what skills that you have. And I also like to share my own example. I studied computer science at the university, but I've never really had a chance to practice that because I always wanted to be in the media and in marketing and communications, and which is where I ended up shining, because I loved it. We talked about being comfortable, and it's something that I've always found comfortable. So I learned how to do that and ended up being able to do it well. And Sam has a question for you, and he says that he's asking about the part you talked about, organizations suffering at the cost of training employees, because many companies usually are scared that you're going to give skills to employees and try and give them this sort of training only for them to leave you for other companies or greener pastures. Is that something that becomes a problem to tackle? Is it a thing of looking at the
That is a short-term problem. If you take, some of the leading companies, they actually have a very different philosophy. And that philosophy is train your employee good enough and well enough so that he or she wants to leave. Listen to me carefully. Train your employee good enough or well enough so that he or she wants to leave. But treat that employee well enough and good enough that the person will not want to leave. So you need to make sure that you couple training with the proper work environment. It will be foolish for you to train your employees without creating a culture. And that's the reason why you need to have the proper culture. So the two of them go hand in hand. And I can tell you one thing, in the last 40 years of my career, I have worked for 5 large corporations, but I've handled a variety of jobs. So when you switch, for example, my last corporate role with HCL Technologies, I spent close to 14 years in that organization, not in the same job. I had a variety of jobs. So we need to train our people well enough that they may want to be poached or attracted by somebody. But the culture of the organization should be so good that they want to retain and reinvest their skills back. But having said that, there will be a certain percentage of people who may want to leave. That's okay. That is the flip side of this whole training business. But in reality, what will happen is, these employees, after some time, having tasted your culture for some time, they go to another organization or another country and they say, no, it's not working out. They may want to come back. In a large number of organizations, whether it is Coca-Cola or Prudential or Hewitt or Whirlpool, all these organizations have got what is known as an employee rehire program, an employee alumni pool. So you can bring back these employees at a later point in time. Don't let that deter you letting your employees harnessing the skills. Let the employees harness the skills. Whether they want to leave or not is a secondary aspect. But you need to let employees harness the skills. And if Africa as a country focuses on this objective, the entire employability will go up. And more than anything, the GDP will go up because there is a higher skill component. You take the case of India. You know, in a large number of the places where the IT organizations are there, you can change your job without changing your parking lot. But that is only the beginning of the curve. So you have a Cisco or you have a Genpact or you have a Intel, all neighboring each other. In fact, next to the fence of one of these companies, there was a beautiful sign that was put up many years ago. And you know what that sign was? Trespassers beware, you will be recruited. But let me tell you one thing, nobody wanted to trespass. Why? Because they said, my company treats me so well. Yes, they have trained me. Yes, but I have got accustomed to my company's culture. I've got accustomed to my company's ways of working. I've acquired a particular skill which somebody is thinking is in demand, but I want to reinvest it back in my own company, in my own country. Africa will move up the value chain once you couple harnessing skills with the right work environment.
Wow, you're touching a lot of nerves here. You've got a lot of people on the call today who are budding entrepreneurs, and I'm sure that listening to you going about this, I think they have a lot of comfort, especially knowing that you should be able to. And I'll quote you here: train your employee well enough that they want to leave, but treat them well enough that they won't want to leave. I think that's a very, very big takeaway. Someone else here for you is saying, this from Augustine. He says that the big thing that he has heard from you today is about the fact that the purpose of learning is growth, and our minds, unlike our bodies, can continue to grow as we continue to live, and talking about skills creation and jobs creation. And the question here is for you, Anand. if you've already raised the issues that we have with our education system in many countries in Africa, but I'll speak specifically about Uganda. And the fact that our curriculum does not center too much on training the sort of skills that you're talking about, the ones that we need for 2025, for example. What would you say are the top 2 or 3 key things that a person needs to be able to do to sort of help teach themselves and get these skills on their own? Do they go back to school? Do they read? What would be the key things you want them to be able to do to pick these skills?
Yeah, first thing is almost all the skills are going virtual, and COVID has really enabled you to do that. So take advantage of what is known as MOOCs, massively online open courses. The moment you shift your classroom-based teaching to online teaching, after some time, the student will move from one particular discipline into another discipline, what I call the 5A learning. Listen to me carefully. What is the 5A learning? The 5A learning is any time, not just during school time, any time, anywhere, not just in the classroom. It could happen in the home. It could happen in the field, anywhere, anybody. In a school, there is an admission criteria. There is an age criteria. But on the internet, anybody can learn. Anywhere, anytime, anybody. The 4th discipline is any course. Now, you and I know a large number of the academic institutions have got what we call a prerequisite. For example, if you want to do a master's in chemical engineering, you will have to have done a bachelor's in chemical engineering. But online, if you want to do a particular course in Coursera, Udemy, there is no prerequisite. They do recommend a particular prerequisite so that you learn better. But if a person has got into chemical engineering and from there got into cell technology or computer science, no problem. Anytime, anywhere, anybody, any course. And most importantly, any mode. You can learn through the laptop. You can learn through the phone. You can learn through your tablet. You can learn through a kiosk. And I can tell you one thing, from whatever I have experienced in Kenya, in Zambia, in Uganda, in Congo, in Nigeria, Africa has got a lot of smart devices. Learn to use them smartly. Learn to use your phone, the bite-sized learning. So let me give you the 5A learning. What is the 5A learning? Anytime. Don't worry about class time. It could be anytime, anywhere. We were restricted with classrooms. No problem. Anywhere you can learn. Anybody can learn any course in any device. You can learn on a TV. You can learn on a kiosk. You can learn on a phone. You can convert just about every smart device that you have at home into a learning platform. Anytime, anywhere, anybody, any program, and of course in any mode. That is the answer to Africa's explosion in education. Don't link education to teachers. Don't link education to classrooms. Don't link education to school hours. Anytime, anywhere, anybody, any course, and any more. Thank you.
No, thank you. Because again, like you point out, we are getting to a point where in Africa we have enough smart devices, and we also have internet costs that are coming down. They've been a bit high, but they're coming down. So internet is now quite readily accessible. I find that I always end up spending hours on end on YouTube and Quora. There's a website called Quora, which I find very fascinating because I end up learning so much about so many different things. These days I fix my own car because I've learned how to be a mechanic off of YouTube. So when I take the car to the garage, I'm just looking for manual labor to do what I want them to do, but I already know what I need them to fix. So I absolutely hear you. Frank here says that Uganda's new secondary curriculum does advocate for learning to take place according to the 5A model that you're sharing. However, he says that it seems to be saddening that most of the teachers are not willing to embrace it, I guess, because it puts them out of a job in a way. So that becomes an important thing. This is coming in from Subi, who says that we don't have any more excuses. I think you've laid us bare now. There's no running away from this. And we shouldn't link education to teachers anymore at all. And lots of questions about where we can get copies of this presentation. Again, as has been shared, The recording for this session is available online immediately after this on Facebook. You can find it there. On YouTube, you can find it there. You simply look for the hashtag InspireSynergy21 and you should be able to access this. And also, if you registered for the conference, you'll be able to get a copy of this in your email at some point. So, Betty, you're saying
I want to
that,
mention one thing.
Go ahead.
If people are happy, I'm more than happy to answer questions on Twitter. I'm very heavy on Twitter. Take down my Twitter handle and you can ask me questions anytime. Anand _Pillai. Ben, Anand _Pillai. That's my Twitter handle. All the participants of the conference can ask me this question anytime, in addition to watching the video on YouTube and whatever. And I'll be more than happy. I'm committed towards the development of Africa because I know what we have gone through. We're just about 20 years behind we were. And, I tell most of my American friends, you are ahead of us by 20 years. But now we will always be ahead of you. You know how? We will be ahead of you by at least 10 hours. And that's the time zone. Light aside, Africa will be ahead of America, at least from a time zone point of view. And technology is an equalizer. Earlier, technology was a differentiator. Today, the technology that you have is the same technology that is available in China. It is the same technology that is available in other parts of Australia, New Zealand, America. Technology is an equalizer. Leverage it to the hilt, and I'll tell you, the world will just sit back and watch what Africa will do for the transformation. Having said that, you got something that none of us have. Everybody knows that Africa will be the football of the world. We will come back to you. Don't worry. So, and you gave the quote of yesterday. Africa does not need the world needs Africa. As long as people have got a stomach, they will come to Africa because Africa is the football. But having said that, people have got brains also. Don't let people come to you for their stomach and go somewhere else for their brains. There is a lot of talent that can be deployed in the aging economies. Africans are myopic today. They are looking for employment within Africa. The world is a stage. You harness the skills, you can be deployed in various parts of the world, initially virtually, and once you get talent mobility, you can go anywhere in the world. All the best.
No, thank you so much. That's absolutely amazing. Bridget here says that there is no bliss in ignorance indeed, and no excuse for not improving our employability at this point. And of course, you did mention, Professor Anand, the fact that India and Africa are sort of on the same level in terms of demographic for the population. And yet you can clearly see how far ahead of us India has gone in terms of skilling its people. A lot of the labor that's coming to you from Europe and the US, and definitely an opportunity for Africa to come there as well. Just a reminder for you, in case you want to follow Professor Anand, it is Anand _Pillai. That's at Twitter. Please note that there are very many Anand Pillais. I had a challenge trying to find you, Prof, because there are so many different Anand Pillais. What helped me was a picture of you, because I knew what you looked like. So it made it much easier to find you. So when you do go, remember, it is at Anand _Pillai, and you'll find a picture of Professor Anand. The person who looks most like a professor with any of those names. You shouldn't miss that. But thank you so much, David. Oh yeah, if you're saying technology is an equalizer, Africa can leverage it. And that's absolutely true, because even right now, you've got many companies. I have maybe about 4 or 5 friends who live in Uganda but work in the US. They're working computer programmers and coders who earn quite a decent living by working for companies in the US, which is what India has been able to harness very well in the last 15, 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. And so there's opportunity for us there, no doubt, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
and so you can catch up. You don't need another 15 years to catch up. You possibly need 15 months. You can fast track very, very well. And that's the beauty of technology. You can leave the first 4 generations and get straight into the 5th generation.
And I'm going to end the session with something that you said at the end. I mean, there's been so many quotable quotes here, but I think the one that you finished with is the one that has really struck a nerve for me. As far as people have stomachs, they will come to Africa. but let's not let them come to us with their stomachs and go elsewhere for the brains. Let's get their stomachs and use that opportunity to give them our brains as well. Professor Anand Pillai, as always, like I said at the beginning, it's always an absolute delight listening to you because you're just simply amazing, and we thank you for being a part of Inspire 2021. Thank you, and thank you, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
Right. We're going to take a very quick break now, and then when we come back, we go on to our next speaker. As you can imagine, Emma has been saying this since yesterday. Our President Paul has been saying this since yesterday. Inspire 2021 is not the kind of thing you want to miss, and we want to encourage you to share these links with your friends. Make sure that they know about what's going on, because we're just getting started. Today is day 2. We've got tomorrow, we've got Thursday, Friday, all through to Saturday. The hashtag, if you want to join us on Twitter, at Inspire Synergies 21. So you can, of course, go there and tag us in everything that you tweet. Go and tweet these quotes that you're picking up today. Go and share them so that the people who follow you can be able to get an idea of these gems that you're picking up and can be able to go and use them, not only to come and join us, but to come and learn as well, because remember, we've got to get ready. Africa needs to get ready. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, you'll be hearing from Becky, who will be introduced by our President Paul to take on to the next session. Otherwise, stay around, go and share the tweets right now, get involved, and let someone know that the next session is coming so that they don't miss that. We'll be right back in about 4.5 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Open up your eyes, lift your head up, open up your mind. You will see all the beauty of this land. You're a star.
Take a look around you. What do you see? Take a look within you. You're a blessing to all. Women in your time.
Ọba tó ṣoore fún mi ṣoore fún wa tó ṣoore lójoojúmọ́. Ọba kọ má ti kà lẹ́yìn. Adúró gbọ̀ngbọ̀n lẹ́yìn aṣòtítọ́. Kò jẹ́ ronú ibi rárá.
Inuka Africa. Sema sema simama. Inuka Africa.
Semuka Africa, usazitarisire pasi. Maria no kuda iwe, wakakomborerwa iwe. Maruti osenga azive mwari nekuda kwechako chiedza. Zvirima uri zvikuru. You a star, you were born to shine, it's time to rise up. Arise, arise, your light has come. Uri mwana wa mwari, creation waiting for you. Show the world your light.
Betuli Africa, Mumusai. Betuli Africa, Mama Land. Betuli Africa, land of beauty. Betuli Africa, land of minerals. Betuli Africa, Mumusai. Betuli Africa, Mama Land. Betuli Africa, land of beauty. Betuli Africa. Inuka Africa, it's time to rise. Open your eyes. Inuka Africa.
Semuka Africa, this is the time to shine. Inuka Africa.
The black jewel is a godly favored continent. This jewel is the nucleus of the world, as it is the most centrally located continent. The black jewel is power, brilliance, and outstanding uniqueness. This jewel is gold. It is vast gas and oil reserves, diamonds, timber, fish, and great wildlife sceneries. It is vast, beautiful deserts and a unifying coastline. The black jewel uniqueness is in its color black, the very depth of all colors. It is victory. Our victory as a black jewel lies on our genuine black knees, knelt in a unified cry to the Almighty. Our black jewel will rise in Nuga, Africa. The black jewel.
Your time has Hello, Africa. I hope we are all ready. I hope we're all getting started. We're about to start our next session, so I hope you have invited all your friends to join in session 2. I'm Rebecca Sui, and I'm excited to be your host for today. We shall start in exactly a minute from now, so grab your pens, your notebooks, your screenshots, everything you need, and we shall get started in the next 1 minute. Welcome back. Welcome back once again, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Second session. My name is Rebecca Subi, and I'm so happy that this evening has started out in a powerful way. Africa, we have no excuses. We need to harness each and every skill that comes our way. I really enjoyed the session that Professor just held on, and one thing that stood out for me was that the focus for Africa is no longer job creation, because the jobs are actually not there. What's the point of creating jobs when you have no skill for them? And so this evening, as we start our next session, I want to welcome everybody once again. Please remember, we are live on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. If you have a question, we have a Q&A chat box. Feel free to write any question that you would like our speaker to respond to. Otherwise, welcome once again. So our next session is really talking about the emerging critical skills in Africa. And our speaker for tonight is Miss Ivy Anan Muwako. Yes, Miss Ivy Anan Muwako is from Ghana, and she's the head of learning for Africa regions at Standard Bank. She has experience of over 20 years working in human resource development, and she usually advises on modern work learning and development initiative. Miss Ivy has worked for over different organizations, the non-profit organizations, government organizations, even the private sector, and her interest is really based on supporting people to identify their God-given purpose so that they can use all of that knowledge to launch them into successful careers. So as we begin, kindly, once again, any question you can just type it in the chat, and let's get started. Miss Ivy Anan, you are most welcome to Inspire E-Conference. Let's get ready, Africa.
Thank you, Subi, and I'm sure you can hear me very clearly. And a good evening to our distinguished listeners and to Professor Anand. for laying such a good foundation for this second presentation. And indeed, I'll be speaking about the emerging critical skills in Africa, and what an exciting conference we have underway. I would, just before I go into my presentation, I'd like to invite all of you to think about this question. What if you had an opportunity to develop or learn a skill? What skill would that be and why? I just want you to reflect on this and keep this at the back of your mind. Think about it throughout my presentation. What is the one skill that if you had an opportunity to develop or learn would be, and why would you invest in that skill? And you know, it's interesting because Prof did a lot of presentation around the realities of employable skills in Africa. And I would be speaking about Africa's current realities as I unpack the emerging critical skills in Africa. And I really want to also unpack the difference between knowledge and skill. And I want to speak also around the skills gap in Africa, and then some recommendations to close the gap. So it will build on what Prof. Anand took us through. So as you know, Africa hosts the world's youngest country. So all the world's youngest countries can be found in Africa. And the World Economic Forum estimates that 15 to 20 million young people will join African workforce every year for the next 2 decades. And so by 2030, Africa will be home to more than a quarter of the world's population under 25 years. So we will make up 60% of the continent's total population, young population. So by then, 15% of the world's working age population will be in Africa. And the continent's urbanized population will be more than 50%. So that's some of the current realities that speaks to our beautiful continent. And that also means that it does present us quite some challenge, because having such a young people presents both opportunities and a challenge for the continent. The continent will remain the world's youngest region, with a median age under 25 years, and the number of young people is into the millions. If you look at the diagram, which the sources from the UN Population Prospect for 2019, it says that if you look at the median age of the total population, 2020 forecast, so a country like Niger, the median age is 15 years. If you take a country like Uganda, the median age is 16, let's say 17 years. If you take Mozambique, that's about 18 years. Zambia, around about 18 years. That speaks to such a young, vibrant continent, Africa. And also, it does present some challenges. And I think that Prof did talk about it a lot, to say that among Africans graduates, 50% have no jobs. And that's not surprising, because we've talked about lack of employable skills, not the absence of jobs. But interestingly also, the highest proportion of young entrepreneurs in the world can be found in sub-Saharan Africa. But then the research work that was done by the African Policy Review did say that, unfortunately, 32% of these young individuals are necessity-driven entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship is perceived as a survival strategy and not a business opportunity. So we have a challenge at hand, but we also believe in Africa's potential. And so we in Africa, what we need to do with that population of youth today, what we do with our youth today will determine the future of work in the world. And Prof did say it's boundaryless when you've got the skills that are required, the relevant skills can transcend Africa. So Africa can certainly become the brimming workshop of the world if we have a knowledgeable and highly skilled workforce. We will be able to propel this continent into the fourth industrial revolution. And yet we are confronted with an emerging skills gap. So a skills gap is really the gap between the skills that an individual has currently and the skills that he or she actually needs to perform a job well. So the skills gap can vary in questions or the types of skills required for the job. That is the challenge in Africa. So the current skills of our youth, of the young people, of the graduates, is not matching the skills that are needed to propel this continent into prosperity. But when we talk about skills, oftentimes it is usually interchanged with knowledge. And I want to try and unpack that a little bit for us, that there is a difference between knowledge and skills. So when we talk about knowledge, we're talking about the mastery of facts, a range of information in the subject matter area. So for example, I think it was one of the co-hosts who said that he had knowledge in computers, but he was more interested in the media. So you can read around computers, you can actually study about computer science, but you would not have used it to solve any complex problems. You've never applied it to solve a problem. So you've got knowledge, but not the ability to transform or to transfer that knowledge into outcomes. So that's knowledge. We can read about content, we can read about farming, you can read about auto engineering, you can read about housing and construction, but you may not use it to actually turn into an employable skill. So knowledge is very different from skill. I know about something does not translate into I have the ability to do it or to actually put it into practice. Whereas skill speaks to expertise, competence in a given area. You have the ability to use the knowledge to solve a problem. Skillful in automating a process for accounting. I can do it. If I'm given the job that requires me to do this task, I have the ability to do that. I'm skillful. I've gained the experience of doing. So one is knowing and the other is doing. Now, when we talk about skills gap in Africa, this image is quite striking because what it seeks to project is there are quite a number of educated graduates in Africa. But if you look at this demonstration, it says educated and unemployed. Another one at the back says we chose education and not poverty. So it goes to build further around skills and knowledge. And the concern that have been raised by many prominent institutions on Africa's inability to fill most of the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics jobs within industries. The STEM jobs is what we need today in Africa. And only 4 to 12% of students graduate with STEM-related degrees in Africa. And I'd like you to think about the impact this has. It says that the shortage of such workforce is linked to classroom teaching and learning practices that are predominantly geared towards passing examinations and not toward applying knowledge acquired to solve real-life problems affecting Africa or affecting society. So indeed, if you look at it critically, what is the point of teaching learners mathematics and science subjects in a way that they do not find immediate applicability other than passing a 2.5-hour examination? There is abundance in social sciences, and that's not to say that's not important. We need all the disciplines, but there is a strong imbalance between the skills that Africa needs to propel us into prosperity, and that is related to the lack of STEM-related degree that is lacking on the continent. Again, I talked about skills, that building the expertise to apply one's knowledge to accomplish a task. So the focus of the presentation is skill, acquisition of skill. And Prof. Anna did a very superb job to say, how do you grow your own career and acquire the needed and relevant skills that will make you employable. There are jobs, but we do not have the right people with the skills we need to get the job done. There was an interview that was done recently by PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they interviewed globally some chief executives, and they were all concerned about the availability of key skills. Among African business leaders, this figure jumped to 87%, and 45% of them said they were extremely concerned that they were not finding the employable skills that industry needs. If you look onto this research work that was done by the African Policy Review Group, they talked about the fact that in Nigeria, currently, Nigeria needs 51,000 more engineers in its electric power infrastructure than it currently produces. So you clearly can see the number of skilled workers in many of Africa's labor markets does not even match the extractive sector current needs. The jobs are there, but we don't have the employable skills to leverage off these job opportunities. Again, due to the lack of a domestic STEM workforce, most STEM jobs in Africa today are outsourced to other countries, including the US, China, and India. So for example, because China has a large workforce of engineers, China has a strong presence in development projects in Africa. In 2014, there were 87 Chinese construction teams that traveled to Kenya to construct the standard gauge railway. And that's just one example. So what are the emerging skills gaps in Africa? And I would avoid giving you a list. I'd like you to come along with me and apply your minds around how might we transform this continent into prosperity, a prosperous continent with the right skills that this continent needs. And that's what I'll focus on. Indeed, the World Economic Forum indicates that Africa faces a huge digital skills gap, and this could dilute our economic opportunities and development for the continent. The emerging skills that Africa needs is around digital skills. So by 2030, more than 230 million jobs will require digital skills in Africa, according to the International Finance Corporation. And a lot of jobs in many of African countries are being automated. So if you take South Africa as an example, 41% of all work activities in South Africa are susceptible to automation. 44% in Ethiopia, 46% in Nigeria, 52% in Kenya. That should give you that almost one can conclude that more than close to 50% of our work activities on the continent will be automated. Hence, an emerging critical skill in Africa is digital skills. Now, if you look onto this diagram, it clearly shows that there is demand for digital skills in Africa, but the supply is less. So the demand for digital skills far outstrips supply in sub-Saharan Africa. If you look onto the key points raised here, digital skills, analytical skills, interpersonal skills, character and behavior, and you look at so if you look at the black line where you got the lines here, that speaks to where the demand is. And then, and then the demand. So sub-Saharan, including Ghana, this is where the gap is. So you can clearly see the global market trend and where Africa lies. So if you take, for example, around critical analytical thinking, there is a gap. The gap gets much wider when it goes to computer literacy, application of technology. Around the digital skills, you can clearly see the gap that exists between the demand and the supply. Of course, there are huge needs also around character and behavior. We always say that skills will get you the job, but character will keep you in the job. And so it's really, when we talk about skills development, We are not saying that there's one skill that is superior to the other. It's a combination of the right skills and the relevant skills that will get us moving this continent into prosperity. A combination of digital skills, analytical skills, interpersonal skills, character and behavior. And in all cases, there is a huge gap. There is a huge gap between what we need for Africa's development and what Africa is able to supply. And so then that brings back to how do we move on, given this is our reality? So I would like to conclude on this diagram and the research work and the presentations done so far, that Africa needs digital skills across the economy, not just the tech sector. So Harvard Business Review did this research work and I found it really instructive. They said, research shows the digital skills that are needed in the 7 sectors across Africa. So we need digital skills, not for its own sake. Digital skills is not the result. Digital skills is a means of transforming Africa's economy. And they gave 7 key sectors that holds opportunities for driving Africa into prosperity. 1 is agriculture, 2, banking, 3, consumer goods, infrastructure, mining, oil and gas, and telecommunication. So what Africa needs is the digital skills across the economy applied to these sectors to propel us to leverage of the opportunities that this continent holds. So much of the demand for digital skills will emanate from generic occupations that are not narrowly defined by ICT professions. We need enterprises that will adopt digital technologies in a broad range of sectors. So then again, the World Economic Forum says about 70% of the demand will be for foundational digital skills, and another 23% will be for non-ICT intermediate level digital skills. The question is not so much acquiring an ICT degree or an ICT competence, but applying the ICT into the sectors that hold opportunities for Africa. I just want you to see this again based on the LinkedIn data from 27 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. And it clearly again shows the lack of digital skills on the continent. If you see, some even go in the negative. So we haven't even reached the threshold to begin. There is quite an emerging strong digital literacy. So people are aware. I said that the mobile technology penetration in Africa is very strong. So that awareness is there. But when it comes to scientific computing, software testing, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, game development, enterprise software, software development lifestyle, cybersecurity, computer hardware, graphic designing, computer networking, technical support, there is a gap. There is a gap. And remember, these are not an end in themselves. It's applying these into Africa's value-adding sectors. I think, so what are the opportunities for Africa to close this gap? And I believe that Prof. Ahmad laid down quite some significant thoughts around career progression and development, the role of organizations. And I'd like to present 3 opportunities for us to consider in closing this gap in Africa. 1 is that each of us in Africa are created to do good work. And we need to debunk the myth of a cool job. So there are quite a number of people. I had an occasion to meet 20 graduates. And I asked them a question to say, how many of you truly are pursuing the courses you are at the university because you believe that those are the things that you really want to contribute to Africa's development, that will fulfill you and solve society's problem? 80% of them were living their parents' dreams and not pursuing their God-given dreams. And I want to present that each African child is created to do good work. In each person lies a unique opportunity to fulfill themselves with a God-given design. that will fulfill them and also make this continent prosperous. So my presentation to you today is, let us seek to expose ourselves into the variety of occupations there are, but aligned to your interests. There are no menial jobs. Skill is a currency. If you are skillful in your work, name your price. Value is in the quality of the skill. Many corporates are willing to pay for the critical skills that are needed to transform their business. When skill is present, money is not the issue. And so the presentation is to pursue mastery of the skill, but aligned to your interest. If your interest is in tourism, if your interest is in agriculture, if your interest is in banking, if your interest is in telecommunication, if your interest is in security, expose yourself to what are all the occupation types and varieties that are needed and apply yourself there. I think we should debunk the myth of cool jobs, where we identify a list of these are the jobs that are prestigious, that are rewarded, that are important. I don't know if any of you have had an experience hiring a plumber, but I've had many experiences of such. And I keep saying, I'm looking for a skillful plumber and I'll pay them any price, because we've changed 5 plumbers over a period of 1 year. Skill is required, but at a very high expert level. When you have proficiency and skillful in your work, you name your price. And there are no cool jobs in Africa. There are huge opportunities, from trading to manufacturing, to name it. There are huge opportunities. And it is time for Africans to find their interest and live those dreams through exposure. Then also investing in skills proficiency and mastery. And that has to do with paying the price of investment. Oftentimes, people are so much in a hurry to get in and climb very fast. And we haven't really mastered the art of gaining the right experience that will really show that you have mastered the art of your work. It takes time, it takes experience, and it takes practice. It takes looking for opportunities, sometimes not so much the money. Internship projects, putting up your hands to even work on government projects, not because you want to be paid, but you're seeking exposure. There are many successful stories of people who have broken through their careers only because they volunteered and they gave of themselves with the intention of getting the exposure they needed to be able to fulfill themselves. So live your own dreams. Your passion will birth creativity and innovation. Be intentional about solving problems with your skills. So the first question I asked you is, if you had an opportunity to learn any skill, what skill would that be and why? The skill you have must solve Africa's problems. And Africa has many problems and opportunities. And we are looking for employable skills to do that. I want you to remember that each one of us on this call is created to do good work. And there is no limitation on you. Find what interests you and give it attention. Develop it. Be brutally disciplined to acquire the best experience and name your prize. I want to go on to say that the impact of our skills on the continent should generate value, economic value. So skill is not valueless. Once you have the skill, and we're transforming Africa to become a prosperous continent. And this is it, Africa's time is now. Our skills should generate economic value. It should be profitable. It should also generate social value. It should benefit society and solve problems. And it should also have spiritual value, eternal value, because as you know, we were created by God to do good work. For organizations, in terms of how to close the skill gap, the recommendation is to take on a holistic approach to skills development and become radically generous and develop an integrated strategy plan to upskill, reskill in specific sectors. I think Prof. Arnold said we should benefit from the stomach, but also from our brains. But the challenge I put to organizations is being radically generous, is that you're not only Africa for the returns, but you're also leaving footprints of contributing to Africa's human development. We know many organizations that set up academies to grow and give opportunities for Africa's young people. We need more of such partnerships. Once you are in Africa, it's not only for the returns, but you also leave indelible footprints of contributing to Africa's human development. I believe that if all organizations in all the sectors I shared have this generous, radical ambition to leave footprints in Africa, where they make huge contributions to provide opportunities for Africa's young people, we would be closing the skills gap that are lacking. So on one hand, there's a responsibility for you as an individual, as an African child, or as an African citizen. There is also an opportunity for organizations to help close the skills gap that we found. And then for the nation, I think nations also have the agenda to transform and give opportunities for closing this gap. We need a political will to invest in a sustained and coherent manner that prioritizes skills academy, that solves Africa's society's problem. So we talk of Rwanda, South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria. We need political will. We talk of India. They were very deliberate. The gains that we see India have today is as a result of many years of deliberate and intentional planning, and they are reaping the benefits today. If Africa wants to be at the forefront of becoming a very strong continent that is transforming the opportunities we have, then we need to sow the seed today, because we can only reap the investments that we make today into our young people. And I also believe that we should use data to inform the strategy on where to invest. There are gaps in many sectors in Africa, and there are hundreds and millions of young Africans that are pursuing higher education. Do they have information about those opportunities that would direct them on which disciplines to pursue? I think we need to use data to inform personal plans for career development, organizations similarly, and also for our country. I believe in Africa, and I am really excited to be given this opportunity to share some of the things that I personally am passionate about. I've been a very strong proponent of really challenging the dignity of labor in Africa. And many times when I go into places, I ask, so what role do you have in this organization? And I hear people say, I'm just a receptionist, or I'm just an accountant. So I just also want to leave you with a passing comment to say, let's drop the just and strive to close that skill gap by saying that there is dignity in every labor in Africa. What will make Africa stand out is excellence in our skills. And that's where I'd like to leave this presentation. Thank you, and I am open for questions. I would like us to have a conversation, and I'd like to invite you to share your thoughts. Thank you for your attention, and I'll be very happy to take on some questions, and then we can use the rest of the time to have a meaningful conversation.
All right, thank you so much, Ivy. These are very good insights, especially when we are ending our evening. I like how you really elaborated on the fact that we are all special. We were all made uniquely, and we need to embrace those differences so that we can be able to apply our skills in the areas of our interest where God designed us. I'm taken to the thought of all Africans. Just imagine, everybody in the chat, imagine if each and every one of us just took off time, our areas of interest, and made the skill in that one area. Miss Ivy gave an example, is just a receptionist, whether you're a receptionist, a janitor, an accountant, a teacher. Imagine if you actually took off that time to get the best skill in that one area. What could Africa look like? We would be people that everyone looks for because we are doing each and everything in the best way that we know how. And then another question I want to leave us with before we get into the Q&A is that this year, right now we're in August, today is August 10th, I believe. What skill have you been intentional about for the past 8 months this year, 2021? What skill have you put aside and said, okay, this year I really want to work on it, and how is that going? So this is a call to each and every one of us. If we are all designed to do something very uniquely, that means we have to invest, and nothing is for free. Everyone who is an expert has put in the time and practice and hours to actually be good at what they do. So this is a call to each and every one of us. We have some questions, some Q's and A's, and we have a question from Jane. Jane is asking, what can our national leaders do to protect local skilled labor, ensuring that when foreign partners implement projects in Africa, they must hire the local labor? What should national leaders do? And then I'm referring to an example of the 87 Chinese. Chinese are well known for bringing their own workers in the industries, even in hospitality. So what can our national leaders do to really support local skilled labor? Over to you, Miss Ivy.
Thank you so much, Subi. I think there are many things that we can do. One of the things is, I think we need to have a vision for each country needs to have a vision. I know the African Union has envisioned this dream of growing Africa's youth and ensuring we have the employable skill. We need to have a vision today of what we want to become in 20 years, because that's the only way that we start to be very deliberate about. If the vision is to ensure that every African has employable skills, that we drive this continent into prosperity, then we need to back it with actions. I wish I could influence the national agenda, but I hope that through advocacy, we can get government to put their monies where their heart is, because really we need to move away from talking about it to actually acting it. And I always say that if you look at India, what India is today is through the investments that were made many years ago. African can do that. And it's not actually to say that we have a blank slate. There are opportunities, there are hubs, innovation hubs that are emerging, but we need it in large quantities. More so, Africa lags behind science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Globally, we are behind. And if you look at, we entering into the fourth industrial revolution, those are the courses that we need to begin to dial up. We teach mathematics in school, not to apply at home, to say, how do we apply maths at home? The homework we give to our kids has no relation to practically solving problems. Until we begin to transform our curriculum to make it practical, we will not be able to harness the vision that we have for Africa. There's a lot, it's almost like a myriad strategy, from our educational reforms to being deliberate with investing into skills hub and academies, and partnering with organizations and corporates to support government's vision. It starts with a clear vision. What is the vision for Africa? And what is the vision for the nation? Plant the seed for the vision today so that we can reap it in 20 years.
What is the vision for Africa? Which goal with even you as an individual, what is your life vision? Do you even know what you are how to move from volunteering to create a job. The people we volunteer for, question. You can volunteer for, do not hire you because you're just volunteering. It's free labor, they're saving money. So how do you move from volunteering to being hired?
That's a very good question. Thank you, Subi, for that. And I think volunteering should be seen as a means of growing your skill or developing your skill. So for example, take it that you are interested in cloud engineering and you've got no skill, but there's an organization that is willing to take you on to give you an opportunity to have practice experience. I think that you should grab it with both hands and go for it. Because in any case, when you are entering the job market, the first question we ask you is, can you do this job? Have you done it before? Have you got the experience? Volunteering gives you the experience that ordinarily you will not be able to get. And I think once you build a skill, you should proudly be able to articulate what you can do with that skill anytime an opportunity emerges. I have not seen anyone who is so skillful being denied a job unless they are not able to present well what they are able to do. I would say, Africa, take opportunities for volunteering, take opportunities for internship, take opportunities to be very deliberate in investing into your skills. Don't think about the money, because once you acquire a certificate or a degree, you come into the workplace as entry level. Nobody would pay you good money as an entry level. They would pay you more if you have the mastery and the proficiency. Volunteering, internship, working on projects, putting up your hand to shadow someone would give you the experience that will count later for a job availability. So it's all part of the employable skills that one needs.
All right, thank you so much. And just to add on, you talked about, I think the professor talked about character, as well as you also talked about character. When we are acquiring all these skills, there's a place for character. So even when we are volunteering, it's our chance as African children to make sure that our light shines through, so that even as you are an employer, people are part of you because of your character, your nature, your kindness, and your excellence. And so that's one thing. We shouldn't take volunteering just, I'm here to learn a skill and lend a hand. No, you're there to lead, so that they can always remember you. And you'll be surprised, they might call you just back. And it's a good chance for you to network as well. We have so many questions coming in, and quite a number of people are saying, yes, indeed, volunteering is the way to go. And Asianat Isabella wants to know, apart from digital skills, I know you stressed a lot on digital skills, kindly at least highlight just 10 common skills that we might be overlooking, and they're necessarily digital skills.
Okay, I think I would quickly do that. Just to build on what you said. So usually when you look at the fact that we say technology is driving Africa's growth and development, we would find people who have the technological know-how, they would study, but it's not applied to a sector. And throughout all the 7 sectors that the Harvard Business Review talked about, I would say that is where the opportunities lie. If you take agriculture, there are huge opportunities to apply technology to transform Africa's agriculture. It's limitless. If you take banking, if you take construction or infrastructure. So I deliberately shied away from saying this is the 5 list, because technology is a means to transform activities and work. It's not the end. The sectors that technology needs to be applied is where we need to start off from. So all of us on this call may be very interested in different sectors. There are people who would say, no, banking is not for me. But I've always loved infrastructure. I've always loved agriculture. Seek the exposure of what are all the possibilities and what are the technological needs that would drive Africa's agricultural development. That's digital skills is critical, because without it, we can't even compete globally. And so the recommendation for all of us is have at least some basic digital skills, basic foundational digital skills. But if you want to go further deeply, look at the sectors that interest you and seek to apply those digital skills into the sectors. That's where the opportunities lie. So have that as the end in mind. What problems will you solve with the knowledge that you have?
How relevant is it in the area of your interest? How relevant is it? So we need to also be intentional, not just to learn and pile up certificates, short courses, but to also apply to our everyday life. Now, like for me as a nutritionist, we have so many softwares that are coming up in programming for nutrition policies. And you need to
sorry, Subi, whether it's from my side, but I'm struggling to hear you a little bit.
Current trends in exporting. Yes.
Okay, so yes, I'm struggling a little bit to hear you. Okay, yeah, I'm struggling a little bit to hear. So what I'll do is I will try and go to the question and answer and try and pick out some of the questions and respond to them, if that's okay. So I think I heard you talking about the current trends in exporting labor from Africa to the Arab world and beyond. Any justification, any way to reverse this? I think I would side with Professor Arnott, because we do have, when we lack the relevant skills, we import skill, and that's very okay, because we've got great Africans who work globally. So that mobility of skill is also a strategy. We Africans can work anywhere. What we want to leverage on is that there are huge opportunities right home. And I, particularly from a pure Pan-African view, would say, let us try and immerse ourselves in the opportunities that Africa holds for us. Certainly when you have opportunities to grow your skill and you can work elsewhere for experience, certainly take the advantage. If Africa decides to have a vision of what we want to be known for, just like India has done, a lot of corporates are looking to India for partnership or even outsourcing some aspect of their business to India. So certainly we can also export the human capital where needed. When we've grown our skills, we can transfer. But I certainly believe that on this continent, there are huge opportunities for us to leverage the opportunities that this continent holds and to transform Africa into a prosperous continent. That is the vision for the Inspire Conference. And we're hoping that that inspires all of you to look at Africa differently and to apply ourselves on this continent. Certainly when you have the opportunity to work elsewhere, get all the skills, but remember home. We need to transform this continent to become a prosperous continent. All hands on deck.
All right, thank you. Apologies for the network. Can you hear me now clearly?
I can hear you clearly now. Thank you.
Thank you. Allow me, I'll not put on my video. But one of the last questions I'd like to ask is our work ethics as the youth is really lacking. So how can we encourage our Gen X, Y, and Z to strengthen their work ethics? What can we do to encourage better work ethic?
Subi, thank you so much for this question. And it was so striking when I looked at the demand for skills, for digital skills, that one of the skills that was included was character and behavior. And even there was a huge gap in terms of what is needed and what we supplied. And only yesterday, we played a video at home, and I'm just using this as an example. And this was a gentleman who was mourning that he had a very large corporation. He wanted good people. He said, I wanted people of character to employ. And Subi, it will surprise you to know that he had to import skill from India, because he said they were hardworking, trustworthy, and he knew that his business was safe. I think it just underscores that having skill is not enough. We've looked at many skillful people who have disappointed us because of personal conduct. I think Africa, given our warmth and our exuberance, we can actually brand this continent that if you are looking for trustworthy people, hardworking people, don't look anywhere, look onto the continent of Africa. So character and behavior is actually key. You can actually train someone and give someone employable skills when they are more willing. It's hard to work with someone who is very skillful and has bad character. Character and behavior is #1 in Africa. I think we should also take a look in this conference to really ask ourselves, what are some of the descriptions that people give about Africans? Do they use positive descriptors or is it negative? And we on this continent, on this conference, can change the narrative. For young people who have opportunities to intern or to volunteer or to work, I think our work ethics, we should strive towards excellence and strive towards knowing that whatever behavior or character we show up brands the continent as well. Character is first, because character and competence will give you consistent results. Competence alone will not give you the results. So skills, core skills alone will not transform Africa. Character and employable skills would lead to a consistent transformation of the continent. Character at all levels, personal character, organizational character, national character, envisioning that this continent will hold in its space the ability to stand out, to say, when you are looking for people, honest people, people of integrity, look at Africans. We want to rebrand Africa with that message. And so, Subi, that's what I would have to say, that if we can make a pledge on this platform, that we would strive to place character first, Africa will begin. And I always say, let's sow the seed today. Let's sow the seeds today so that we can reap it in 10 years, in 20 years' time. Plant a small seed in your home, water that seed, it will start to sprout, it will become a tree. Then suddenly it becomes a big tree, and then there are fruits. But the tree that you see with lots of fruits only became possible because someone planted the seed, watered it, took care of it, and we enjoy the fruits. I believe what we need in closing the gap is not only technological digital skills, but a combination of that and character.
So as we continue this conversation, it's really inspiring. It's making me think, and I'm sure many people, many of us here are thinking about what can we do as individuals? You know, many times we look at Africa as Africa, like we are all Africa, but it actually starts with you and me. It starts with individuals. So like Miss Ivy said, let's pledge today to be people of character and integrity in everything we put our hands to, so that whatever people know about us, it will actually be real character and integrity. It will speak for itself. Somebody, Norbert here said, let's brand Africa with ethics and integrity. And character and competence, like you said, will give you consistent results. So character, I mean, digital technology alone is not is not enough. Character competence is what we need. So let's pledge today. In the chat, I know we have quite a number of people. We have over 240 people. Let's pledge. Type in the chat, I pledge to be a person of character and integrity. Just type it in the chat if you can. I know there are many words, but for sure it starts with me and you today, not just here at the Inspire conference, but even after the conference. Let's not just be excited. Let us come back next year with a different narrative so that we can know that indeed we went out and were different individuals. We have only 5 minutes left in our conversation. If there are any other questions, we can take maybe 1 or 2 more, but there's a question here. Is it possible to have your notes and slide presentation? Yes, it is. If you registered for the event, you will definitely have a copy of those. And those who are following us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, thank you so much. You are all very welcome. So let us have one more question. Anyone having a burning question, we can definitely take one more to wrap up this session. And in the chat, we can see so many people are pledging to be people of character and integrity. It starts with me and you. Let us not see Africa like that one, dark continent. No, you are there. So be the light. Start with your family, start with your neighbor next door, start at your workplace. And I've seen this even in the healthcare system, we have quite a number of nurses and midwives. If you're a nurse, if you're a midwife, start with your patient. As a doctor, start with your patient. As a teacher, start with your student. So let us not just, see Africa as a big picture, It starts with me and you. We are Africa. So I pledge to be a person of integrity and of character as well. Allow me to stop here. Our time is fast spent. Thank you so much, Miss Ivy. So many people are pledging. We have over 80 pledges of integrity and character. And my prayer is for each of us is that when we come back next year, I hope that people will actually have testimonies of what you have shared, testimonies of the skills they've acquired and how they've actually applied them to the areas of their interest, and even testimonies of people who have discovered who God has created them to be. Because without knowing who you are, you won't know where to go or how to even do it. So thank you so much, Miss Ivy, once again. There are few people still pledging. We thank God for you all. And I'll hand over to Mr. Emmanuel Osanga to continue the virtual networking event. Thank you so much, Ms. Ivy.
Thank you so much, Subi, for the moderation, and thank you for having me. It's been such an honor and a privilege to be on the conference. Thank you all, and thank you very much again.
Thank you so much, Ivy, and thank you for ending us on a good note where we get to pledge. I think it was wonderful for us to do that, just to ensure that we keep this going. Guys, we've had a wonderful, wonderful second day. I'm sure you've enjoyed yourself. I did promise you that today would be explosive, and I'm sure you bear witness to that. We thank the professor and our sister Ivy for sharing passionately about this topic. I do believe that if we take the learnings that we've extracted from today, we'll be in a much better place as a continent. Our time is fast spent. I want to remind you that tomorrow we have yet another blockbuster. It's going to be I'm really looking forward even to tomorrow more than even the first 2 days, because we'll be hearing firsthand what timeline it is for Africa, and we'll have some practical steps that we can take as a continent to actually start to advance towards transformation. So I'm looking forward for tomorrow. You can see that time is pressed. We're trying to squeeze a lot into a short time. We will actually be increasing maybe our start time or starting a little early on Thursday and Friday, because we have quite a number of speakers. So please take note that the timing, the start time will move to 6:30 Uganda time on Thursday and Friday and Saturday, just to enable us to make sure we get as much juice as we can from these days. This is once in a year, and people are enjoying it. If you've enjoyed it, just type on the chat. Appreciate Prof and Ivy for the great work that they've done today. And thank our moderators, Subi and Ben. You've done a wonderful, wonderful job. What we are going to do now is to go into the networking session briefly. This is really a place to connect. I would ask the technical team to put that link onto the chat now. You click on that link, you'll be taken to virtual meeting rooms where you'll have the opportunity to connect and be able to create that connection and network. The link, we'll post it on both the Q&A and the chat so that people can have access. Benjamin, if you can put the link for people to just click that link. We'll keep this going. If you want to read, I'll ask Ivy and Prof to respond to the questions that are still outstanding, just to type the responses. The links are there now. We put the links for you. Time for some tea and coffee. Do connect appropriately. At your pleasure, we'll continue to play some background music in the background as you connect to go to coffee. Thank you very much for today. It was a great time. We look forward to having you tomorrow. Please do share the links with your friends. This is something that shouldn't be hidden. It's something that should be accessible to everyone, that you have access to. Your friends, your family, make sure they connect. Thank you. I'll just close with a word of prayer, and then we'll go into the virtual rooms. Lord, we thank you for yet another wonderful day that we've had. Thank you for the gift of wisdom that has been positioned here for us, Lord. We thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for guiding us. Thank you for the soil where these seeds have been planted. We ask that these seeds will begin to bear fruit, that they will come out of the ground and bear fruit. I pray, oh Lord, for each one of us that will not be just hearers, but doers of what has been taught today. Will not take it and hide it, but will practically apply it. We thank you for your grace. We ask for your strength to be able to push this continent forward. We ask that you, as you transform us from the inside, we'll be able to transform our nation and nations of the world. We thank you and we bless you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Enjoy the networking session. Enjoy the coffee. See you tomorrow at